History is told by the victors. So that is why you have likely not thought about or heard about the 2016 LSU Fighting Tiger defense in a long time. They're one of the best defenses of the modern era, the history of the conference, and certainly in LSU history. And I think outside of 2011, that is the best group of guys I've ever seen. 2019 won a national championship, but these guys would honestly tear that defense apart. So let's talk about the 2016 LSU Fighting Tigers as a whole. This is not the famous Leonard Fournette 2015 running through everybody year. He still did that, but he was banged up quite a bit. So it was mostly Darius Geis and Darrell Williams. Darrell Williams went on to win a Super Bowl. So did Leonard Fournette. You got guys like Russell Gage and DJ Chark, Malachi Dupree, Traven Durrell. That was your wide receiver core. Of course, Russell Gage and DJ Chark played in the NFL for several years. Blake Ferguson didn't miss a game for like 4 years in a row as a long snapper for the Dolphins. Ethan Posick is still actively a starting center in the National Football League. And Foster Moreau, how can I not talk about Foster, right? Foster beat cancer while in the NFL, and he ended up playing for the Saints. There was talent there, and it just didn't get it done when it mattered the most. I watched a Missouri game where we win 42-7 and it's wide open lanes and you're looking like I-40 here in Memphis. You're just rolling, right? And you play against Alabama and it doesn't look like that. So let's talk about that game specifically, the Alabama game. The LSU-Alabama game in 2016 is one of the greatest games in the history of the conference. It really is. It was 10-0 Alabama, but it was 0-0 for 90% of that game to this play. Jalen Hurts, over the middle, scrambled for a touchdown, basically broke Tiger Stadium. I wasn't there. I watched it on TV. But, man, it's a big catalyst for this video because of just how good this LSU defense was. So I want to get into it. This defense was led by Dave Aranda. It had future NFL Pro Bowlers like Jamal Adams, Devin White, Tre'Davious White. There are three guys that are still actively in the NFL that played on this team in some capacity, whether it be in limited roles because they were younger or starting roles because they were getting ready to go to the draft. But Dante Action Jackson's still in the National Football League. So is Christian Fulton, and so is Arden Key. Arden Key, man, dude's been an absolute force these last few years in the National. You got Devin White, who's a Super Bowl champion. You got guys like Duke Riley with over 200 career tackles. I'm trying to make sure I don't miss anybody. Like, this team was so freaking stacked. 16 members of this defense ended up going to play in the NFL for at least one season after this. Like, this team was loaded. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of the stats from 2016 for this defense and why I think they are so great. Now, they gave up more points in wins, but I'm not counting win points given up. I'm counting loss points given up against the best of the best that year, the top tier of the conference. They gave up no more than 18 points in a loss. And that was against Auburn. And that was the famous game that Les Miles called a timeout that he didn't have in. Ended up, he got fired after that game, right? This team was so good, they gave up basically 16 points a game, and it was 17 points in conference. They gave up 5 yards per play and 325.5 yards in conference. But when you go and you look deeper, it was a little bit less than that. So it's not a crazy step back. They took a little bit of a hit in SEC play, but everybody tends to. But it wasn't something drastic. They were elite in the offense, just like I mentioned. Could not get it done when it mattered the most because they didn't want to change the offense. Since it's now been 10 years since this team, I wanted to talk about them. I wanted to give these guys their flowers and talk about how this defense was elite and how Les Miles' issues as a coach kind of helped ruin them. They had all the NFL talent. All these guys that would go on to be studs in the National Football League and even preseason legends like Danny Etling here. And the foundational pieces of a national championship team were here. And it would 8-4. That is insane. But God loves you. I love you. And that is my in-depth video on the 2016 LSU Fighting Tiger football team.